I wanted to take a trip out west, and I was thinking about going into the Oklahoma Panhandle, Texas Panhandle area, and just looking around. And I've never been out that direction before. And I kind of quickly realized after doing a little bit of research and trying to figure out where I was going to go that leaving my house in Indiana and trying to get there in one day, you could do it, but it meant that you're going to be leaving the house before the sun goes up, and then you're going to be getting into a town and trying to check in for the night long after the sun's already set. So um, I didn't want to drive the whole drive. And after doing a little bit of research on Google, I figured I could make it past Wichita someplace and just stop in Kansas for the night. So I decided on Greensburg, Kansas, and didn't have any particular reason other than it just worked out good for the timing. And along with that, I needed to research hotels and restaurants, and is there anything to do in that town? What's interesting about that town? And Greensburg has a couple of hotels to choose from. They also have a couple of pretty decent restaurants to choose from. And interestingly, they've got a couple of attractions there as well. One is I believe they call it the Kiowa County Museum, and there's a soda fountain somehow associated with all that. Classic 1950s soda fountain type thing. And then there's the other thing is called the Big Well, and the Big Well is a giant well. It was hand dug when the town was first being founded, like 1888, and it's got a long story with it. So I figured I'd do a little bit of research on that. And it originally was built not only as a water source for the town, but also mainly for a water source for the Santa Fe and Rock Island Railroad. This not just too long after the people settled in that area, Santa Fe and Rock Island announced that they was going to be laying tracks through there and creating a line. So they probably figured it was a good idea. Hey, if we build a well, there's going to be a whistle stop here, and that's going to really increase the usefulness of our town. It wound up being 32 feet wide and 109 feet deep. And how they built it, it was the 1880s, so they had to build it all by hand out on the prairie. The men was working with pickaxes, pulleys, ropes, barrels, wagons. I imagine there was mules or horses. Um, and they would carry the debris from the work site and then drop it around the area, any place they needed basically landfill material. And then for casing the well, what they did was they quarried the stone out of Medicine Lodge River, which is located a few miles away. And they would take the stone block that they were digging out of there and then line that as they dug their way down. And at 109 feet, they ran into a gravel bed aquifer, which, as we know now today, is actually a huge gravel aquifer that is encompassing several counties in that area, and I believe it still supplies water to a lot of the towns. So what they did was they took a perforated pipe and they stuck it into this gravel bed and then created a basin area in the bottom of this well so that gravel bed would be feeding clean water into the well. It actually served as the town's water supply all the way up into the 1930s, I believe like 1932. And then, modern water tower systems were put in place instead of that. Um, when you go there now, there's a new museum structure over the top of that well. And as you're looking around the town, you notice that there's a lot of new construction all over that town. And unfortunately, that's because there was a big tragedy in 2007. On May 4th of 2007, the town of Greensburg was hit dead on with an EF5 tornado. And this tornado was massive. It went through in the evening. It destroyed over 90% of the buildings in the town, including the high school building that had served as their high school for years. Um, and then by morning time, they realized they were looking at a death toll of around 11 people. And, it's extreme tragedy. And also keep in mind that the town at the time only had about 1,500 people living there full time. So, it wasn't just one neighborhood or a couple trees. Every single thing, the entire footprint of Greensburg did not exist anymore. So, what the people of Greensburg decided to do, through their town council, working with FEMA, was they developed a long-term plan, a reconstruction plan, which they called Greensburg Greentown. It was a nonprofit that they set up, and basically the idea was they were going to just lay out on the conference table a map and take the footprint of the town that they had and figure out how can we reconstruct this town in a modern, sustainable, energy efficient way so that we're set for this coming century as opposed to just rebuilding the town the way it was. And almost all the buildings in the area are LEED certification buildings, LEED buildings, which requires the building constructions as well as the usage of those buildings to be energy efficient. There's a sponsorship of corporate names that stepped in to help fund this and get it off the ground. Ben and Jerry's was one of these companies that stepped in to help out. Cliff Bar, the energy bars that everybody's familiar with. Stonyfield Farm also jumped in and helped out on getting this initiative going. So when you're walking around, I wanted to get up in the morning and check out the outside of the well. It's a really nice area. There's a park, shelter house, lots of landscaping. There's a playground, as well as there's some statuary and some public art on display, and also a memorial in remembrance of those who lost their lives on that night. So it was good sunlight, and I wanted to test out the equipment that I had anyway. So I was getting some pictures and some videos. And just as a testament to the character of the people that live in that town and have been raised in that town, a gentleman was doing his Sunday morning walk, actually stopped and said good morning and asked if I needed his help to take some pictures, like he could take my picture as I stand over by the big well building or something. And I was like, oh no, thank you, but that's real nice. And he smiled and waved and went on his way. But I got the feeling that that's normal, that's just normal behavior for the people in that town, is that they're probably very, very proud of what they have. They probably are enjoying a heritage of character that kind of harks back to the original community. So if you think of the town was put together by hand by people who had a reason to want to work together, and then the town goes through its cycle of prairie home, prairie community, small town life, tight community, and then through tragedy they also stick together and they don't forget where they came from, but they find a new way for them to move forward as a community. I think that speaks wonders to the level of the people who live in that town. And if you're ever driving through that area, be sure and stop by. Inside the well, during the hours of operation of the museum, you can walk down inside the well. There's a spiral staircase that leads down, as well as around the structure on the inside. There's a lot of other information about the history of the town as well. So I'm glad I stopped in there. If you ever get the chance to stop in there or even just have dinner in the town, be sure and do. It's really an American treasure.